Saleh had a quote on Friday, kind of defending would be strong, but just saying, hey guys, his career's not over. He just needed a reset, which I think was fair. And there was a report earlier in the week that this decision was not based on how the locker room felt. Like that wasn't going to be the sole thing because they all knew the locker room wanted another guy. Saleh claimed that he made this decision based on who, like from a football standpoint, like is Mike White a better player? Like, will he give us a better chance to win? Not just because Sauce Gardner, all the wide receivers want him. But then today when he was the third, like, I guess it makes sense. I didn't really think much of it. Like, yeah, he's just not going to dress.
Right. That surprised me. Why does that make sense? I guess if you are not demoting him and you're giving him a reset, then I guess that makes sense. But that's still pretty weird, don't you think?
Guy, I would say it's borderline unprecedented to be the second pick in the draft, be just a lock starter, and by the middle of your second year, lose your job and be the third string quarterback immediately. It'd be one thing, right? If you're kind of banged up, like he just needs a week, we're going to give him kind of like they did with Tua, kind of going back and forth, but he was injured last year and then he just became the job. This
Rosen?
Yeah, but his team sucked. To me, part of it's like your team's good. So you're kind of having to make legitimate football decisions, right?
Yeah.
Trying to win games. I feel like his career's over with the Jets. The players, once they won this game, they didn't even have to hide it. Like you text me like what backup quarterback was more beloved when they came in, Mike White or Jimmy Garoppolo? Clearly Jimmy Garoppolo.
Whoa.
He was pretty well. It's not debatable. He was well liked, gave the team a boost, and it was the story speaks for themselves.
And Trey Lance much more liked clearly than Zach Wilson.
Clearly, they don't have it wasn't even an anti-Trey Lance thing. Besides maybe one player on offense, this one is not even debatable. I feel they hate this fucking guy.
Well, I saw last week. Did you see
Elijah Moore said he went to the ball and said, "I love you because I'm going to see you again. Don't forget me."
Elijah Moore's a character, man.
Well, do you think he lost? Where he was so mad is because he hated playing with this guy he didn't think could play? Is there part of it that way?
I think part of it, I gave you the stat last week, he throws the ball away a ton. And I think there are a couple quarterbacks who throw the ball away a lot, in part because you get credit. Some people give you credit for throwing the ball away. But what you're doing is throwing away possessions. Like throwing the ball away when there's nothing to do is one thing, but throwing it away in a spot where somebody else would make a play is a problem. And Zach Wilson he just throws it away out of bounds a lot, like way more than anybody else. It's a weird stat for a guy who's supposed to be a playmaker, right? So, so there's that. And then, the internet loves to make fun of
guy. His comp was like explosive arm, like Rodgers.
Well, yeah, because he was dominating Weber State that year at BYU. And the internet loves to make fun of Booger, even though I've heard from multiple people Booger is like a beloved human being. But the other day, did you see Booger the other day on, what would that have been? Was that Monday Night Football last week or?
About when he said he's a rich kid?
Yeah. And I saw, but like Portnoy retweeted, it was like, what's wrong? Rich kids can't have work ethics, Well, Booger's not saying rich kids can't have work ethics. Booger's not saying every rich kid.
He did say, though, I'd rather have my quarterback be a poor kid, I think. That's what he said.
Yeah, which again, like there's probably some internal NFL. You've been in NFL like scouting meetings. I bet that's been said in NFL scouting meetings.
Now a quarterback, I would say.
Okay.
Well, I mean, Peyton Manning, Eli Manning. I mean, most of these guys grow up pretty middle class.
Isn't Drew Pine's grandpa the guy that invented, or dad? Somebody invented. I saw they showed it on the broadcast the other night, like one of the private jet leasing companies. But it was a Josh Rosen. It was absolutely a Josh Rosen rap.
Steph Curry grew up rich. Klay Thompson.
No, I get it. My ultimate point is, I do think there's something to be said for. I get what Booger's getting at, but specifically, Booger. Even though he was making a general statement, my read on what he said was he's been told that Zach Wilson specifically acts like the things you would assume an entitled rich kid would act like, right? Like that to me is what he was saying. He wasn't saying. Even though he said, rich kids, that can be dangerous. I think what he's saying is this guy acts this way, and they think it's partly because of how he was raised. That's what he was saying.
I thought
somebody told him that. I think somebody on the Jets told him that.
I saw someone was like, his fucking uncle's a rich one. It's not even his family's money. It's like, I text someone today, and the word they brought back was pampered. And this is the number one thing I learned in the NFL. You have to treat every player individually, right? Some kids come from money and kick ass and take names. Some kids come from money and are fucking losers, like this guy, I think clearly is. Some kids come from dirt, right? Nothing, and give everything they have and become pillars of your team. Some guys come from nothing and are just kind of shitheads, right? Every guy has their own thing. This guy's problem is clearly people don't like him. And whether that's a rich guy thing, whether that's an entitled thing, whether that's back to what I said about Jimmy, some fundamental flaws in his game. Like, is he actually not that accurate? Like you said, or some of the throws, like, what did he actually look like the previous 2 years when they were playing real teams? The hype wasn't there, right? He's got some fundamental flaws in his game on top of his mentality. Like, is it purely the rich thing? I know what you're saying. I agree. Booger was told that that's the way he's talked about,
Yeah.
But I think he just purely sucks, like, at football. I saw Richard Sherman say this, like, last week. He's just terrible. Like, he's just an awful player. By every metric, he's the worst quarterback. So whether he was rich or poor, if you're just playing like that, like Jamarcus Russell, I think came from nothing. I saw someone forwarded me a DM broke down their stats through like a year and a half, like kind of identical. Like he's just a terrible player. So then you factor in, like, if you're a terrible player and guys like you, it's like, I'll ride with you a little bit. Clearly the guys don't like him. And in a locker room, they're rich guys, they're poor guys. Now, technically everyone in the locker room has money now, but you know what I mean? Like the way some people, even with their money, are cheap. Some people are fucking frivolous. Some people are all.
Well, did you see Micah Parsons the other day?
What he said,
like he won't. He said something like, if I see, like, so he won't pay more than like $2 for soda. He's like, they brought me a soda, it was $4. I sent it back.
Yeah, see, but here's the thing: if you're in the Cowboy locker room, like Zeke gets along with Zach Martin, who gets along with Tony. It's like guys just get along, right? The Niners guys, it's all kind of get along. This kid clearly was not well liked. One thing I had heard a long time ago is he was bad in OTAs. He clearly was bad this season. Part of it is just if you're on the team and you start going, God damn, we got some fucking dudes now. Like our team's, and this guy just sucks. And then you don't really like him. We've all worked with people that if you don't like them and you don't think they're good, how do you take them seriously? I think he just gets to that, like the money part. Because at the end of the day, like every guy he's dealing with now has cash. So like ultimately his background from a player to player standpoint, like it's probably more from a coach to player standpoint. But like, did Elijah Mitchell not like him because he grew up some rich kid in Salt Lake City? Or is it like, I think this guy sucks and I think he's kind of a D-bag? Right?
Yeah.
Am I mixing my guys up?
Elijah Mitchell,
Elijah Moore, and Garrett
Wilson,
who looks pretty sweet. I think they're receivers. They feel like they got two legit dudes. I mean, guy, they were all talking shit about him. Defense, offense. It can't be that it's just he sucks. Like he's got to be just a douche.
That's the way it feels.
Douche. But I guess my thing though, where you grow up, having worked in the NFL, having just lived life, like I've met cool guys. I don't think where you come from determines how you are. It impacts it.
I think we're making very general statements, and like you said earlier, it's for some people it does, and for some people it does not. Right? If you read the Arch Manning article in the off season in The Athletic, a lot of it focused on Peyton and Eli's recruiting, and one of the things was like, yeah, a local reporter wanted to come talk to Peyton. They would invite him to the house, and he could come in and sit down and talk with Peyton and Archie, Grandpa Arch, right?
You're saying when Peyton was coming out in the 90s.
Yeah, before he chose Tennessee. It was just a very mellow, they would just go meet. It was, you could call the house and they'd answer the phone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they had
it's Peyton,
it's
Bobby Bowden's on the phone.
But I do think like the Rosen, well, not just Bobby Bowden, it'd be like, Plaschke's on the phone or whoever. The Plaschke of the South.
Skip Bayless is on the phone.
Feinbaum. But like the Rosen thing was like, is there something that happens where you don't try as hard? Remember the Bears guy that got fired for whatever he said about, he made a comment like basically saying like, I like poor football players because they're desperate, so they really play hard or whatever. His comment
we want PhD.
Yeah.
Poor
hungry, desperate.
Yeah.
And
I think he screwed it up. It's poor, hungry, and determined, I always thought. Right? Like driven. Like desperate. Yeah, but he got fired.
Whatever. You can be driven if you're poor. You can be driven if you're rich. I agree. I'm agreeing with you. It's not predetermined, but I just remember, like with Rosen, part of it was like, well, does he really need this? Is he really working that hard at it? And I don't know. Maybe that's why he failed. Maybe it's not. I don't know. Right?
Well, exactly. Like I would lean the reason Josh failed. Clearly, he's just not as good. I mean, you and I saw him at practice next to Purdy and
Chris Prescott
and Sudfeld, and it was pretty clear he was the worst of the group. Just throwing footballs with just random quarterbacks, not even Trey Lance or Jimmy Garoppolo, just random backups and third strings, and he looked bad. Right?
Yeah.